Welcome to Off Ledger, the podcast for accountants that explores the personal side of the profession. Becoming an accountant, and more importantly thriving as one, is no easy task. Hearing how others have navigated their paths can offer both practical insight and reassurance for those facing the day-to-day realities of the role. In each episode, we share honest, real-life stories from firm leaders, uncovering the twists, turns and defining moments that have shaped their careers. You'll hear inspiring stories, candid reflections, the occasional story of success pulled back from the brink. Subscribe to Off Ledger, and whenever you need a reminder that you are not alone, we'll be right here for you. So I have the great privilege of introducing you to someone who you are probably aware of but may not, and that's Lucy Cohen. Lucy is an entrepreneur, an athlete, a campaigner, and much, much more. And she's got a fantastic and phenomenal story about success in adversity. She's experienced some of the most incredible challenges and achieved the most incredible amount. So welcome, Lucy. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, that was a nice intro. Thanks.
I worked on that for quite some time.
That's good. I liked it.
So thank you again. It's genuinely brilliant to chat, and every time we speak, I learn more new stuff about you. But for the edification of people who have not met you or are not familiar with you, could you just give us the Lucy Cohen in a nutshell?
Sure. Yeah. So I founded Mazuma when I was 23. We were the first ever subscription model in accounting. Back in the days, kind of really before cloud was mainstream, so very systems based. We've since gone on to develop our own proprietary technology that everything runs off. And the largest female founded accounting business in UK history at this point, which sounds amazing, but depressingly low bar. So working on raising that bar. I'm also an ex-British team powerlifter and Commonwealth silver medalist. I nearly died a few years ago, and I'm currently a doctoral researcher for AI in accounting and finance.
I did tell you, didn't I? I did tell you. It's an incredible story. So what I'd really like to unpackage, and Off Ledger is really about exploring the times when people who have achieved a huge amount have perhaps felt that they didn't deserve it, or perhaps felt that they weren't really in the right place. And that's what we want to look at. So it would be great to kind of go back to the young Lucy. You started off in Cardiff.
Yeah, Cardiff, yeah.
And what happened? Because you didn't follow the usual route of university.
No, so I had originally, all my family kind of creative sorts, so kind of followed that path because that's the world you grew up in. I didn't know anyone in business or finance, and being creative sorts, everyone there is stereotypically horrible with money, and it's a real hand to mouth, gig economy, musicians famously not all that rich. So didn't grow up where there was enough money to plan anything with. So it was this kind of like nascent thing. When I was 11, I got a scholarship to a fancy school, which then meant that I was there because I was smart, and everyone else that was there because they were rich. And I realized, this is my currency, not money, my brain. This is what's going to get me places. But suddenly became very aware of that kind of difference between the haves and the have-nots, and how life looked very, very different. Growing up in a little terrace house in Cardiff and then visiting my school friends' second homes, it was quite the introduction into what that world looked like quite early. And fish out of water, right? Didn't belong. I distinctly remember overhearing a friend of mine had asked me, because kids don't really know either. Like if you're a rich 11-year-old, you don't really know the difference. Had taken me away, or her parents had taken me away with them for a weekend in a holiday home in Saundersfoot, nice part of Wales. And I remember walking past the kitchen one evening trying to find the loo, and because this place was palatial and everything wasn't just on one corridor, and I overheard her parents saying, "Oh, she's only got the one pair of shoes." And I remember thinking, "Oh, we're poor." Okay. So in terms of kind of money, setting Mazuma up wasn't so much about like getting rich or anything. It was about solving a problem. And the problem was that I grew up in a family that didn't understand money. So I was originally going to go to university to study drama, obviously, and for reasons that didn't happen, I took a gap year and ended up blagging my way, another theme, into working in film and TV for a year. So I worked on some films, some TV shows, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Stood in a wet field for 11 hours a day with people shouting at you. I was like, this is not for me. So walked over to a careers office. I think, well, there's no point going to university to study drama now. That's pointless. What a waste of money. Um, so walked over to a careers office in the centre of Cardiff, next to a Primark, I remember, and saying, I don't know what I want to do anymore. And at the age of 19 and a half, was convinced my life's over, everything's ruined. All my friends are in university, having an amazing time. I was living in a one-bed flat somewhere in a not brilliant part of Cardiff, and thinking, oh God, what am I going to do with my life? In the dramatic way that late teens do. And this woman opened a book of careers, I presume alphabetically, and went, accountancy? And I went, yeah, done. And
Done.
I walked over the road to Jury's hotel group, as it was at the time, went to reception and said, hi, I'm going to study to be an accountant. Have you got any jobs in accounts? These are the first
Literally
time that
that.
literally the financial controller happened to be at reception and said, well, that's really strange. We're just about to put up a job advert for a purchase ledger clerk. Can you do purchase ledger? I had no idea what purchase ledger was. And I went, yeah, I can do that. And then that's how my career in accountancy started.
That
Studied
is
through an
insane.
apprenticeship, studied my AAT, moved into a tech transformation project at kind of council where I did an SAP implementation, where I really got the bug for tech change, disruption. And then towards the end of that, when I was going to have to leave my secondment to go back to my old original job in the council, I was like, no, thank you. I really don't want to do that. And that's when I started Mazuma.
Wow. So first of all, I'm just interested in the kind of backing that you had. You got a very kind of creative family, friends, and a background. What did they think about this? Hey, she's going into this accounting thing. What did they say?
I mean, it's kind of the biggest rebellion you can have, isn't it? If your family are all like artists and musicians, getting a job in accounting, I may as well have been, developing a serious drugs habit and going to run off with a circus.
They'd have been happier with that.
Probably, actually, yeah. Like, would have been way more on brand.
Yeah.
But I think it was just kind of baffling. But then I've always been a bit baffling, so.
Well, and so then the other thing I wanted to ask is you walk into a hotel and say, I would like a job doing this. And they go, yes, why not, walk in? How conscious were you at that moment that that's kind of not normal? That's either something supernatural going on or just incredibly lucky?
Luck is so I believe in two things. Nobody successful got there entirely off their own merits. First of all, there is a huge amount of luck involved because you can have really talented, brilliant people who don't make a success of something, and it's just because things didn't stack up. Timing's everything. So that is one thing. I think knowing when to capitalize when that luck puts itself in front of you. There's a version in a different universe where that girl didn't walk over there, or that girl, someone says, "Do you know what purchase ledger? Can you do purchase ledger?" And she went, "Oh no, I don't know what that is." And I just this version of me just went, again, it's an arts thing, right? Anyone who's ever done like auditioning for something, yeah, you say you can ride the horse and you figure it out later. Like that's kind of in the genes. So I was like, I'll just figure it out. I've always backed myself to solve a problem, so I was happy to do that. And at this point, I was I've been living on my own since I was, I think, 17, 18. I was fending for myself anyway. In that scenario, it's a burning platform. I had to earn money. I had to do something. Otherwise, I can't pay my rent. So this was I'm going to have to do the really uncomfortable thing to try and be more comfortable.
And when you walked into an accounting role, your expectation of that was what? What did you kind of imagine that would be? Did you have any idea or?
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
Not a clue. Literally not a single. I just kind of figured I got an A* in maths, so it's probably going to be fine.
Probably fine.
Probably
That's
fine.
what it is,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's just adding up.
All right, it's just sums.
So this talks a lot about, and we've talked about personalities and how that can inform and guide and control kind of where you end up. You've got, quite a standout personality. Can you describe how would you describe your own personality?
Yeah, so I'm actually an introvert, which I think loads of people, including yourself, Andy, found quite
Yeah,
shocking.
yeah.
I'm actually quite introverted. Like being around lots of people and performing and being front and center. Whilst I'm good at it as a performer, I was a dancer for a long time. Fun fact: I was a backing dancer for Boyzone when I was 16.
That
Um,
is another fun fact. I'll write that
yeah,
down on my
so
list of.
that should be my LinkedIn profile, really. But yeah, so the performer's in me, and the performer is easy for me to have because it's an avatar of myself. There's no vulnerability in that. I can put on a mask, I can put on a costume, and I can go out and perform, but it
Yeah.
takes a lot of energy from me. So if anyone's ever done Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTJ, which is quite rare in women. But I'm a heavy introvert, so that takes energy from me. So a couple of weeks I can text, I'm wrecked for a week afterwards. Like I just need to sit
You
in a room on
enjoy it
my
in the
own.
moment,
Yeah,
though. You,
I
it,
enjoy it. I enjoy it in the moment, because it's gratifying and validating. And when you run your own business, you don't get people kind of patting you on the back that much. It's usually just a lot of people moaning at you, or telling you you're not good enough. So I think it's validating in that moment, being entirely honest. But it's yeah, it takes a lot out of me.
and that's really you've kind of hit on the point, is that validation and that sense of not being good enough that we're trying to explore with Off Ledger. So you started Mazuma, and a lot happened in that time, and we'll come
Mhm.
on to that. But you started Mazuma. What was going through your head at that point? Were you thinking, I'm probably not good enough for this? Or how did that play out?
Um, I genuinely thought I had a good idea. I think that's the kind of underlying thesis of me is that I'm usually able to fairly quickly figure out what's a good idea from a bad idea, or what might be a good idea but won't have any legs, or oh, you're not able to execute on because it's too tricky or difficult. This was a really simple idea. I wasn't reinventing accounting completely. I was just doing it in a way that meant, for my own purposes, I needed to know how much money I was going to earn. I didn't want to live that kind of artsy hand to mouth boom and bust life. I wanted something, I was seeking stability. My childhood meant that I wanted to build something stable for myself, to take one stressor away from me. So I wanted stability, and that stability meant if I could get people paying me monthly, I knew how much money I had coming in. I also knew how much work I had to do, so I could schedule it and plan it.
Right.
Then the flip side of that is the exact people who my market were. They also needed stability because I've lived their life. I knew what that looked like. I knew that schlep to the accountant's office once a year and the stress that caused and the uncertainty. And for people who, anybody creative or anyone who does anything creative, if your creativity is kind of diminished by having to spend bandwidth on things that aren't your unique ability, it crushes you. So I was like, well, I can take that away from people. I like solving problems. I can take that away from people. I love it when I see people be their best selves. So if I can do that, I can take that away from them. I can do that. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. What I hadn't anticipated was that that was quite so revolutionary. I really, because I didn't come from practice background, I didn't know that you were supposed to have different colored folders, or this is the way we do things, or what a letter of engagement was, or a professional courtesy, or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'll sell some accounting services. I can do that,
So
and I'll build myself a
you
little
didn't
life.
think, I'm breaking a mold here. I'm doing something fundamentally that's not really been done before.
No,
So
and
yeah.
and that's never anything that I've ever done. That's never been the intent. 'Cause, like if you go in with that intent, there's a hollowness to it. I think you go in being like wed to the problem you're trying to solve. And if you solve that problem, that's the goal. If you happen to disrupt something along the way, that's just collateral damage, and so be it.
So you weren't aware that you were doing something different. So
No,
did that mean that that sense of uncertainty, fear, doubt was lessened? Do you think it could have been worse?
it could have been worse. I think I realized it when I started seeing like business advisors and stuff, and the famous Ian, who I've written about and spoken about so many times. Actually, little segue, a really sweet guy I used to work with in Cardiff Council called Ian messaged me the other day to say, that wasn't me, was it? I was like, no, Ian, it wasn't you. No, you're lovely. How are you? So Ian from Cardiff Council, it was not you. You're always very supportive. Thank you. No, it was, when business advisors started telling me, this is a horrible idea. You can't disrupt it. It's this way for a reason. I was like, well, the math ain't mathing here. This isn't computing. Why? Why can't things get disrupted all the time? New products always happen. This is ridiculous. And I had just enough naivety to think, nah, I think I'm right, versus being in it longer and not having that momentum and going, oh, yeah, maybe they do know more than me and maybe they are right
Really?
and I'm going to ditch it. So I think a good degree of naivety really helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had grown up with an accountant as a dad, which many people do, and step into that, you're much less likely to break that mold.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Which is a shame, but
Yeah,
glad you
just because
did
your
it.
environment.
Yeah. Because I mean, those ideas. I mean, that subscription is now incredibly normal.
Yeah.
It was talked about extensively. I remember all throughout the 2000s and beyond, and it's now really caught on. So that really makes a difference. But tell me about what happened next with Mazuma, because that really took off, right?
Yeah. So obviously didn't have any money. Started spare bedroom, terrible laptop, 100 quid, thinking how am I going to pay my bills? Um, and there's nothing like a burning platform. I'm a big believer in not being comfortable. So um, having a burning platform really motivates you to get up and do stuff. It's very hard to get up and be motivated when you sleep in silk sheets. So being uncomfortable, keeping some grit in your life is critical for me. And it was just like shoe leather, going to networking events, learning to overcome objections really early. So it inadvertently taught me all the skills I would have needed in business school. So it taught me how to overcome objections, taught me how to make what the offering we're doing was succinct, taught me how to price, how to position, how to schedule, production plan, budget, all that stuff. I just had to learn organically because I was 23.
And this was just you.
Yeah, so it was my business partner came on around the same time. So we'd been in school together and had bumped back into each other when we were both finishing our IAT in college. And I'd said, oh, I've got this idea for a business. I think you're doing this. And she said, oh, well, if you want a hand, let me know. And one day I quite like I like collaborating. I like working with people. I was like, just come in, just like join, like 50-50. And so yeah, so she joined and she exited the business just over a year ago now.
Indeed. So that was a real partnership, and I guess that really fundamentally changed it, because having someone with you going through doing that learning together makes it so much easier and more fulfilling, right?
Yeah, but I actually think what really worked was both of us were completely clueless. Completely clued, blind leading the blind. But what did happen was when you've got somebody else with you, you can't both have a mentee be at the same time. You can't both spiral at the same time. You've got to be, if one of you's like freaking out, the other one's got to go, right, now come on, pull yourself together, we've got this, and vice versa. And actually, you learn more in the moments when you're picking somebody else up. When you have to be
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
that's when you learn to do it. And so that is really, if someone else is spiraling and worried about how they're going to pay bills or is screwed up and you're helping them get over it, you being the person going, zoom out, take a breath, have a plan, here's what we're going to do, that's actually really important. So that having that dynamic really helps.
Yeah, because you can't break down as well.
You can't
So
crumble.
did that help you through, those times when you did feel that I'm out of my depth, I might be doing this wrong, because that must have happened, right? That you didn't feel that you were mastering every single stroke of this.
I still don't feel like I'm mastering it ever. Uh, um, yeah, definitely. I think it's more about learning to proceed even in uncertainty. So to look at what's in front of you and learn to make the best decision you can in the moment with what you have in front of you. and that moving is better than staying still, that not doing something is also a choice. So just being passive and seeing what plays out, that's also a choice you're making. And I'd always much rather be in control of a choice than not. Um, and that, that done's better than perfect, always.
Yeah, so you have self-doubt.
Mm,
You experience that
huge
still
amounts of it.
now and you did back then.
Yeah, huge amounts of it. You know, we talk about imposter syndrome, um, which I obviously completely understand. But if you position where I have always sat in this kind of industry, I was a young woman accidentally creating a disruptive model in an archaic industry in a male-dominated space, and now spanning into technology, which also I'm not a technical leader of that. I'm not a developer. Um, in another very male-dominated space, I am an imposter. So no wonder I feel like an imposter. I think that's a normal reaction to an environment that's saying you don't belong here.
Because you've talked quite a lot about that, the being a woman
Yeah.
in, and I don't want to say in a man's world because but a woman who feels that there isn't a voice and there isn't a
Yes.
space, and that can be difficult. Tell me more about what you've done in that space.
So yeah, again, I'm not. Um, I kind of have this kind of, I think, masochistic side to me, which is if there's a room that I'm not in and I can see it's homogenous, metaphorically, literally, sometimes, and I'm looking at that room, I'm going, why is there only one sort of person in that room? And what are they talking about? Because what conversation are they having, and why aren't the rest of us in there? And it comes from, I think, being in a school where I did not fit in. You know,
Right.
I went into a world where people use the word summered as a verb, and they're like, "Well, where did you summer?" I was like, "I went and sat in the green room at my dad's orchestral rehearsals and read books or something." What's so? That's not a verb. Why are you doing English wrong? So I have since being very young, I have been in rooms where I've gone, "Oh, I don't fit. Like I'm not like one of these things is not like the other, and that's me." So I'm not scared of it, and actually I'm kind of curious about it because I'm like, well, and what I've learned about those rooms, actually, if anyone's interested, I write silly Substacks. I wrote one recently about the polo, going to the polo, and that was a world I don't belong in. It was just giving the whole thing was just giving salt burn everywhere. Well, not everywhere, not quite everywhere, but
Yeah, that's an
it was
image.
giving salt burn. I went to that, and I was like, wow. But actually, when you scratch that surface a little bit, most of those people in those rooms are terrified of being the outlier, of not conforming, because not conforming makes you a target. And if you have generational wealth or privilege or anything like that, and you fall out of line, there's a risk that that is taken away from you. And if you've never had to be scrappy and cope, and you've always had a safety net, you don't know. You probably can do it, but you've never had to. You don't have any lived proof that you can live through that. So actually, most of those rooms contain an awful lot of fear. And I've had to be scared since I was a kid. So I'm not scared of being scared. And so therefore, when I look at those rooms as a woman in those spaces, I quite often feel I know that I've had a specific set of circumstances and luck and universe doing its universe thing that have meant that I feel this deep responsibility to go, if I don't, sometimes I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to fight this too. But then I'm like, yeah, but if I don't, who's going to? Like, I've at least got to try because then the next person who looks like me coming after me, I've left a door open for them. At least it's not quite so hard and they'll get further because they're less tired. And yeah, that's just always in my head.
And if you walked into that room now, I mean, how do people react to you? That kind of homogenous, quite, people who summer places.
So I'm at the stage in my career now, and with I'm not going to swear. I don't think this is a swearing podcast. So with very little f left to give now in my life, I'm also at the stage where I'm somewhat undeniable. So even though I might not feel confident, I know I've got a CV and a set of receipts that if you read out my career, it's hard to argue with at this point. So you've built that kind of, I suppose, credence before you go in. Now I like to play with it, and now I like to have a little bit of fun because it's kind of, you know, um, And it's so I went to one fairly recently. It was got invited to a breakfast with somebody very high up in government, and I looked at the guest list and who was running it, and I thought, wow, like, first of all, well, like, great, I've been invited, brill, but also I'm the square peg here. I'm not going to fit. So I went with the jacket on to begin with, thinking, let's just get the read of the room, let's see what it's like. And when I saw that everybody else there was in three-piece suits, the jacket came off, the tattoos came out, elbows out, and front
Bare
photo.
shoulders,
Mhm.
not bare shoulders.
Oh, yeah, I
Oh,
Michelle
oh.
Obama'd this. Um, yeah, tattoos out, and then you're undeniable. And then that combined with being undeniable means that you get the opportunity to stand out from the homogeny.
Yeah.
And
But do they how
yeah,
do they react to you though? I mean, do they, is it kind of a welcoming thing? Is it just a curiosity? What happens?
uh, I'm I'm very charming. So I'm very charming, and I'm just naughty enough to be fun because it's always with a little wink. I'm actually was playing with the idea of writing something today. Is that it's somewhat kind of uh holding the space of in those rooms, to give the kind of 2000s parlance, the manic pixie dream girl, the that it's that space. It's the where did she come from? How is she like this? Um, and that's not actually what it is because it's a game, it's an avatar. But then everyone's got a mask on, everyone's an avatar. I've just chosen a different
Yeah.
one that's more aligned with who I am as a person. And when you sit there and you're actually really, I've learned to be really authentic about myself. People will ask me how my day is, how things are going. I'll be like, oh, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, how are you? Oh, I've had the worst day ever today. You'll never guess what I've just had to deal with on the way in. And then you say it, and that vulnerability, everybody's scared, everybody's vulnerable. You'll get it back and you become a safe space. And so that's when you actually make connections with people.
The Manic Pixie Dream Girl. What an image to leave you with at the end of part one of Lucy's story, but there is so much more to come. In part two of Off Ledger Lucy Cohen, we'll be hearing how Mazuma was born, about powerlifting, about mental health, and Lucy's dice with death, and so much more. Join us for an unmissable story.